Oh yeah, Tachiru Kanga Tashi Dele Kanga Taniki Woto Yaboyo Yawachimoyos.
So, hello, Tashi Dele to all Dharma friends. I hope that you are all well and I hope that you are all happy.
Tatringanzo Tise Tes Tintuin Rabochiganola, Ane O Tanganzo Shirezi Tuni Tapage, Ani Karasakare, Ane Roje Yuzugate, Deyakatanola Kandis Kugres, Titulata Didici, Ganzo Is.
So, in today's relatively short session, we will be engaging in the practice of Chenrezi or Avalokiteshvara, specifically how to practice this in an easy way that can accomplish the benefit or welfare of all sentient beings.
O Takejamu, Tatambo Alenganzo, Alnela Takano Senda, Sando Seshi, Jando Tema, Sando Seshi Mande, Anishirezi Tevachinere, Mando is.
So to begin this session, we'll begin just very briefly as sort of a motivation by reciting the Sangye Chutsukma, the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer. And then after this is recited, we will recite a short verse of praise to Chenrezi, to Avalokiteshvara.
Yes, ma. Sonje Jido Zojo Jono La Jonju Bado Dane Jazo Dagi Jiji Jibi Zono Jindola Bejo Zonje Lova Jo Zonje Jido Zojo Jono Shonju Bado Dane Jazo Jo Dagi Jiji Jibi Zono Jindola Bejo Dava jo zang je je do zo jo jo no la zhong ju ba da da ne ja zo da ge ji je je be zo no je do la be song jin do wa jo xian jie ma ge gen do ga zo su jian je a la jie tu jie xian jie do la xie re zi la zhang zo lo.
Yes, I should have said no today. You recited it, so sorry, this is a verse that I wasn't familiar with, but I do have the English translation of that praise to Avalokiteshvara. So I'll give you the meaning of that praise to Avalokiteshvara in English. White-colored body, untainted by faults, adorned at the crown by the perfect Buddha, compassionate eyes gazing upon all sentient beings, I prostrate to Avalokiteshvara.
Oh, Tade. Oh, Dechi. That's all three Alan to the Sherez Shajiba, Rososogata, Soso, Lila watching in Yolesha Bayena, Galonjando to Seshi Yabo, Chisita, and it's also Kawaii Cardinola Chanara. And it told the Tashi Rezigatavata Shulokachi in the was teaching there. The name also go Jan and Rojana.
So today we'll be presenting this sort of accessible mode or easy way to practice the four-armed Chenrezi or Avalokiteshvara. So as the motivation, we recite the verses of going for refuge and generating bodhicitta, which is really, recited most of the time actually. And then after that, we will explain how to actually engage in the mode of Chenrezi practice, the way to actually do it.
That's also Kawade de Yonata, digging the Latanis, Haja Pusopata, Tajigan and Ravo Pusopayabo, Chisita. What the Tolata, Tani, Tamedo Pemayabo, Chisita, Tolachires Jajiba, Sita Jandayares.
So what you can imagine is that in whatever place you are, that it is not an ordinary place, that it is a beautifully perfected environment like a pure land. And then within that beautifully perfected environment of the pure land, there is a lotus arising. And upon that lotus sits the one-faced four-armed Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezi.
Also, look at the Pado Tandiona, Tate, Tishu, Tilson, Tujan, and Yares.
So if you have a statue or you have a picture image at home, you can visualize four-armed Avalokiteshvara according to that.
That's also Chitapa, that needs to Rumayimba, Rongilama, that's also Javato Chemba in a Tashi Resishajipadu, Yeme, Ninechi, Yelapasi, Ochio, Sombachi.
And so then, in addition to that, as you visualize the holy form of Chenrezi of Avalokiteshvara, for example, if for you the greatest source of inspiration is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or perhaps another teacher. You visualize Avalokiteshvara with the understanding that he is of one essence, inseparable from His Holiness or your group teacher.
다시 레지요 대эл던데 연발은 nom바데 레지 샤지바 저는 가보 어느 좀마던데 그다 nom바지요 섬바지.
And in terms of the kind of physical aspects or qualities of Avalokiteshvara, he is a beautifully untainted, sort of translucent color of white.
단다치 동버디 현지만기 근도 가르 세근도 와서 다시 예치네 메케 다시 세리다 녀마마도 던 녀모바도 다르다 발라서 봤던데 시치네 메비가 그러니까 그가보게 넘바트레스.
So then this actually connects with the verse of praise that we recited at the beginning, white-colored body unstained by faults. So it is this beautiful, translucent white color that is unstained by faults. And here with faults, we understand that what this really means is unstained by any of the obscurations, any of the afflictions, and so forth, the unwholesome minds.
다 너한테 와서 어다드게 아니 니엘다 수진 nom바는 제가 다 리다 나버지 아레스 얼 예범에나 지레 다 지야라.
And then at the crown is the Amitabha.
그래 디데 단다 치니바티 조수진제 얼라제 사테 베메지가 이다 계시기 아레스.
And so adorned at the head by Amitabha, the perfect, when the praise says adorned at the crown by the perfect Buddha, this indicates Amitabha, which indicates the lotus family.
다조조데 된다 순지 관계가 다 절란다고 니반다고 가 코럴 때지 요시비 다지우레스.
And the Buddha form at the crown really indicates that Avalokiteshvara is capable of bestowing the blessings of all of the enlightened beings, all of the Buddhas.
두지시엔진 롤라지 시스바티가 티따드 가조도 마서 미체는 마자네 되는 로이가 강에 세야가 돌마지디 아레스.
Compassionate eyes gazing upon sentient beings. This really means that Avalokiteshvara is gazing on all beings without exception in an unwinking way, in an unblinking gaze.
리서와 어다 던지거든이 더 디서가 손진저 손지 강가 잔이지 강가 라샤이 따라 시레시들 샤자기 산다고지.
And we can understand that it is the essence of the compassion of all of the three times Buddhas of past, present, and future. The manifestation of that is this form of Chenrezi, of Avalokiteshvara.
어다 샤 적은 눈에 따라 샤 예텔라 다른 뭐지거든이 자치 뭐지 칭아
And so then, in terms of those four hands on the right side, it is said that he, Chenrezi, wields a beautiful crystal rosary.
다 디가르세기 요르세나 다 대칭한테 꼬라 잔 꼬라 차수진디 왔어. 다 디가 아니 쇼바도 이제 자와 집이 손주가 셀라되는 로이 대 저마치아파 칭아 꼬라 하고송.
Yes. And so what the rosary indicates is the rosary is going continuously sort of rotating within the holy hand of Avalokiteshvara. And what this indicates is love, compassion, and bodhicitta in a constant stream for sentient beings without break. So it represents that continuity.
요 tellatana medu pemarchira was medu pemate ta shesaten dolishewariten doji makipa. 괜히가 마키바 코로그럼절 요아마레 어디엔 노지 다 아니 시라 분유도비 시라데 하고서라와 아니 그 코알 요스가 가르세 가르다 던진 가서 코알 데요 비깔 코시 가르서 질 시용기 요아레테니 이나요 코롤르테니 코이기 시체니 아니 기토 요아마레.
So then in the other hand he is holding a beautiful lotus, and the lotus flower in the left hand is said to represent the wisdom realizing emptiness. And one of the ways that we can understand this is that as one is practicing wisdom, wisdom is something that is begun to be understood or practiced within samsara. But as one's wisdom grows and grows, then that wisdom is completely pure and allows one to abandon all the faults of samsara. Just as the lotus flower may initially grow within the mud of the swamp, but by the time it reaches the surface of the water, it is completely untainted and pure.
어다 거기 강에 유주 파메 와서 대마도 지체네 코롤을 다 내봤더니 요 말에 시라텔라. 거기시 요 that's 파메 봐서야 마도 치코를 녀바드 chen 요 마레스.
So just like the lotus is untouched by the mud, wisdom is born within, it is developed within samsara, but it only abandons samsaric problems. Samsaric problems cannot harm it.
리송아 어다 된다 타 버스 주바. 아니 시라 버스 주바 니드가 자 제대드레스.
So those meanings of the crystal rosary and the lotus are perfect method and perfect wisdom. We can understand it like that.
다 지마티를 전에 샤자시야 다야만디 샤자찬 디노는다 노우트나 which is just was in yares 지마티.
And so then the other two hands, the lower set of right and left hands, are actually in Anjali, folded at the heart level of Avalokiteshvara, of Chandrezi, and within them is a beautiful jewel.
다든든들이 전에 샤니 샤자찬에 주요 바티가 아니 저 타도 시라니 그러니 뭐 예매가 돈이라 하고서라와 어다든 강가코로 타신 바지 요바 다 제대 야레스.
And so the coming together of the two hands in Anjali, this represents that method and wisdom must be in union. They must be practiced inseparably, and only then can they be brought to perfection.
단디에서 와서 어다든 알렌로 디디치든지래 허카시레스 샤지바근로 돌아와.
So that's a brief explanation of the visualization of the four-armed Avalokiteshvara.
당가로서 릴라보 만도아 이나 시타비칼은 나만이 그 지마티라 니가 치죠 콜로세 아시코네 나만이 그 빠라 텐디엘 저거 저건데와 네 빠라 지마티 니가 치죠 콜로 짜조지 텐디야레스.
So then in the center of the chest, sort of between the two breasts, in the center of the chest, there is a kind of channel wheel of the Tsauma, of the central channel.
어때티 자소소는 도나를 텐다 디엘라 테네 나이치 고야보 지소노도.
And you can imagine that in that place there is a beautiful moon disk.
디토디 이게 시 까보치소노도 시다.
And upon that moon disk, you imagine the letter Ri.
다 디엘 엄마니 베메 홍 와사트 거라 예고 하고서라 다다 지요바치소노도.
And then you imagine Chutsugi Dokcho.
누쇼 말해 다 그런 노지신로도 지발.
And then you imagine that around that letter Shri, there is the mantra of Om Mani Padme Hum.
다 거라 지니요 바치 마늘 이 주세근도 왔어. 지마들 시카보테체 될 거라 지니요 아레스.
And they are circling around that letter Shri. So the letters Om Mani Padme Hum, they are circling around the letter Shri. 마늘 이 주되라 다 지시되라 지시문다와 주인도 왔어.
And
we imagine that the letters Om Mani Padme Hum, that each of those 6 letters is of a different color. And so, just checking with Geshe, and so one visualizes the rotation of that clockwise.
Yeah. 리송아, 거라 예거래송아. 다 지시 주의드 간디스레스나 도모드 가르레. 엄저와 엄가보 마종거 아니 니세보 빼 ngombo 아니 엄마네 빼메 마보 아니 후 ngombo 어디나.
And so the visualizations of each of the letters I'll read out according to what Geshe said. Om is white in color, Ma is green in color, Ni is yellow in color, Pe is blue in color, Me is red in color, and Hum is a dark bluish black in color.
다 대지 감각 당 풍아주 다 단다시 타비칼 알레 아니 다 이게 시지도 이텔 이게 주는 거네야 바쳐서는 또 있다 시다기 알아봤 델 자와 셰레지 텔 자와 도지 총지비 아니 자와 리트그 거네 요바치 소소노 또 그게 알았어.
And so we visualize these colored letters of the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra circling around the Hri, and one of the meanings of this is that it incorporates Dorji Changdam Gyawaringa.
자와리 주에서는 그게 열된다.
Gyawari Truksana Dorji Changdam. And so it incorporates the lords of the 5 Buddha families, so Vairochana, Amoghasiddhi, Ratnasambhava, Akshobhya, and Amitabha. And with the 6th one is said to represent Vajradhara. So Geshe is explaining we can actually say these 6 dhyana Buddhas rather than just the 5 dhyani Buddhas.
오카보데 아니 순지 넘바 넘제 순지 넘노가 사베 와 네네 네 종크테 아니 순지 대 잡아 그래서 아니 오마 니르와 니 세보데 아니 런주 자와 런주 아니 마니 페페 페세와 몬보로와 고 몬보 뭐지 비싸베 메세아데 개파메가 사베 아니 타마 티나데 몬보 티나 다데 아니 자와도 제 종가 사베 자와리 주
So Geshe just going through. Sorry, I said the color and the Dhyani Buddha together. Geshe giving the Dhyani Buddhas again. So we'll say it again. So the white Om, Vairochana, the green Ma, Amoga Siddhi, the yellow Ni, Ratna Sambhava, the blue Pe, blue Akshobhya, the red Me, Amitabha, and the dark blue Hum, Vajradhara.
다 자와 도제 초등이네 지나 다 디스 몬트한도 그도 마든 간조 세센제 쪼데 자와 도제 총
And so it would be a little bit too much to explain in this context, but Vajradhara actually represents what our main mind transforms into. Sangyening also says. And then the other aspects of ourselves become the aspects of these other Dhyani Buddhas as well. And so these are actually set. One of the ways of understanding this is by thinking of them as related to the 5 omnipresent mental factors. The 5 omnipresent mental factors. And so these 5 omnipresent mental factors are feeling, recognition, perception, contact, and attention.
Deswa ta te se zo shi bi se de ko zo re de ne ta se yu kun ro nga te de jawa ri tu tu ten tan ro tu tin chin ro ya re si ma
nga den so gyawa ri nga
ya.
So these 5 of the omnipresent mental factors, feeling, recognition, perception, contact, and attention, these transform into the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And then the 6th one, which is said to be the main mind, this is transforming into Vajradhara.
tere ta nga zo so no to kanes tu ga tani ige khanga lo tangi ta alek mo ke je mo man ro wa te lo sunji yem bala ta nga zo nomba te ige tu nomba yo ara was ige nga nomba yo wa
Sangye nga gi namba gi.
So
what we think is that the essence of all of these Buddhas is expressed in this visualization of the 5 and the 6 letters that we have done. And they are not just ordinary letters, they are actually in the nature of light.
다 소속에서 너네 소노도 위가라 소소소지 다네 소속의 야야라 파마니 소시 비텐다 도와리 쪽에서 이제 유주 다 매일 넘바지 아버지 소노스 있다 그 아레스.
And then as one is contemplating this, one imagines that sitting on either side of oneself, one's father and one's mother, and then behind them all sentient beings, all the 6 types of sentient beings of samsara, but visualizing them in human form.
다 아니 다 언행 다 가저 다 디세 리워여 봐 얘는 동보 소소 집벌로 소노 돈을 와서 안에 엄마니 빼매 홍세다 와서 안에 텔레데스 보네 미 드서 봐 니네 지네 손지게 되니 시레지고 두간에 빠이지 쳇빠이나 워치자 나로서 얼마 수바치 코로 두간에서요.
So one way to visualize this is we can start the visualization if we have a longer period of time, the visualization with the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum with ourselves. And one way to do this is to imagine that there is kind of like a straw or a pipe which is in the nature of light that goes from Chenrezi Avalokiteshvara's heart to our crown. And so
and
as we begin the recitation for ourselves and all sentient beings, we imagine that many of these straws of white light, countless straws of white light, emanate from Avalokiteshvara's heart and enter the crown of every sentient being. And then as we visualize this, we combine this with the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum.
다 사기 다 드네 소화제 지다니 다 대바 고네 샹로 고네라 대치대 내가 대체그라was 다 던지 손도 또 이까르더니 뒤는 면서 저기에서 잡아봐봐 노지게서 나가 아니 잡아봐봐 노지 로로소소 쇼네 마슈네라 다 예대가 미바도 못잖아 일라가 요레스 야 내가
So as we visualize this, then with these minds of faith and refuge, we imagine that along that straw, that sort of light straw, the straw made of light, from the heart of Chenrezig, 5-colored lights and nectars descend, and they enter ourselves as well as all beings, and these lights and nectars sort of push down and purify any contaminated, unwholesome things through the bottom of our body. This is the downward visualization.
소소 이너레 예 이너레 테네다나 디야 디바 이너레 테네 다 랭야 바 이너레 가르 이나야 다바 첩바 이너네 바 괜히 대바 노지 다마 뜨기도 어느 수국이 넘발마 대로요 som바다고.
And so as we imagine the lights and the nectars entering and sort of descending in this way, it's a little bit like putting a very strong jet of water through a pipe. As the water flows through the pipe, it becomes unclogged. In the same way, by the lights and nectars entering ourselves and all beings, all of our negativities, sins, obscurations, and so forth are purified and pushed out downwards from us.
tane ligna cha senje kangela sobata chowa dicha kandiji na yata kanga apa zoma zogo yosono kaze tona ujese yares.
And we can also imagine, there's reason to imagine that for ourselves and others, all the illnesses of the body, any mental imbalances and so forth, that these are also cleaned out, purified as well.
다 던지자 시동을 던지서는 지도 아니 오다 게 아니 어텔에 tane 게 까비 게제 까보쇼절 티소소 쇼원이 마슈 소소소 쇼원이 마슈 아고사라와 아니 나자게 잡히가 다 바자 다든 저바다 랭게 말아서 바바 좀아지 송송바.
And then we can also do specific visualizations, imagining that the lights coming through the straw are emanated from the white Om letter of the mantra within Chenrezig, that these white lights and nectar enter ourselves or beings and purify especially the affliction of pride and the related defilements.
다 조지다 나자 슈치워 여기가 다 조게제 다 하일 보내라 하이더니 나자라서 봤던 리바 용송 팔랑 나자 지모여 알아와 어떤 나자 조여서
라유조야기레 다기레
말해 야 다게제 까보티기로 와서 게제 까보슈 절지 센지 요졸마 티네라 조 나장에 지모여서 하르지 나자 지모여 알아와스 살살 삼담한다 요하라와 사징아자 첨보요 하라와
ale jori chukina
yeah
and so as we visualize these white lights and nectars emanating from the Om entering the field of sentient beings, we can imagine that in particular it reaches those devas or those beings of the god realm, because it is said that pride is the defilement that most disturbs them.
다들 라조시비다 모두 던도도 서도 슬이나 가자게 잡에 바자 강가 파종와존에다 랭엠바 강가 좀아지 소소마다고.
But also, of course, all sentient beings can possess this, so we imagine that the white lights and nectars also descend and include all sentient beings, human, animal, or any other type of being that may be afflicted of pride, and that pride and the negativities related to that are completely cleared away.
단이밤 말와스 어느 말리게제 중거 슈절티 또 조조됐더니 가리 아니 라마열 좌도 좌도 슈치 뭐야 이자 라마열 조시베다 아무도 던도 서도 슬이나 좌도고 잡에 바자 저와 랭엘라서 바다 좀아서.
So then from the Ma, we at the mantra at Chenrezig's heart, we imagine that green light rays and nectars emanate. These go through the straw connecting to all sentient beings, and these clear away the defilements of jealousy. We imagine that principally first these reach the asuras, the demigods, because they are said to be most disturbed by the affliction of jealousy, but also that these green lights and nectars reach all sentient beings, clearing away jealousy and all of the related defilements, negativities, and obscurations related to that.
어다 니 세보러와스 니 세보고다 저도 세계에서 쇼절다 지바러와스 어찌니라 저다 멀 아니 뭐 멀다 대저 쉬침보야 이사 대저라 때네 다 강에 먹어서요 대이자 디드니 야비고 바자도 강에도 간디지나 봐 어다 뭐저시 빙도 강에.
So then from the ni, we imagine yellow lights and nectar emanating from the ni letter at the mantra at Chenrezi's heart. And this goes through these straws of light, connecting in particular to the human beings first, because it is said that human beings are most affected by attachment. And then those yellow lights and nectars entering and purifying all sentient beings of attachment and its imprints, along with all of the negativities and obscurations connected with attachment.
어텐디스와 다 지와텔럽더는 베사테 ngomborwas ngombojawa 마제바라와 어다 마제비 사베다 델리게제 ngom보슈질 티니라 아니 조조다 던로라다 조다 던로 조시비가 아니 또미고 잡이 바자 저바 랭에 가리이네 강에 강가파 세송 손바.
So then, from the pe, which is blue in color at the mantra at Chenrezi's heart, the blue pe associated with Akshobhya, blue light rays and nectars emanate from that blue pe at Chenrezi's heart. They go through the straws, connecting in particular to the animal beings, because the animal beings are most affected by the dullness of ignorance. From those blue lights and nectars reaching the animal beings, and reaching as well all of the other beings we have visualized, all of the obscurations, negativities, and imprints related to the dullness of ignorance are completely purified.
어디서와 다 메르와 어다 멜리테네 게제 마보슈실티 조조다다 니지 더르질다 사탄 지고기 둥아 되고도야 투사야도 되야 메비다 강에서 다 대지조 시베다 강갈다 된다 가리 요 세나 야세나게 잡히다 바저 강가 바조마서야라.
And then from the May, red in color, we imagine from the May at the mantra of Chenrezi's heart, red colored lights and nectars emanate and flow through the straws, connecting with Chenrezi's heart, in particular to the pretas, the hungry ghosts among the assembly of sentient beings. These are purifying, especially the affliction of miserliness and all of the lack of resources, the hunger, the thirst, and the causes of all of that are cleared away from the hungry ghosts, and also eventually to the entire assembly of sentient beings.
단지스와 어다 주바데르베
Yeah.
주바르와 어다 후 단이타 ngombo 티나 어다 델레게제 다 티나 슈실티와 단야와라 단야다 조조다 냐와라 포네르게제 푸바 존지 공을 쩌자바 노지 아니 차종거 등알아서 받아 조 시베단 로아리주 세제 요조가 강에 강가봐 쇼와지 다 녀모서 가르쳐서 다시마다 자리야.
And then one imagines that from the hum letter, dark blue, a sort of blackish blue colored lights and nectars emanate, go through the straws, particularly connected with those beings in the hell realm. And in particular, they are experiencing the intense sufferings of heat and cold, so purifying all the negativities and obscurations causing that, and also those lights reaching all sentient beings. And Geshe is saying now that those dark blue light rays and nectars mainly connected with hatred, with the affliction of hatred, or you could also say aversion or anger, and clearing all of this away along with all of the associated sufferings. And if one can think that in this way, from being purified completely in this way, all the sentient beings have achieved the state of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas and Vajradhara, or these 6 Buddhas. They've all achieved that state.
Janama Takare, Junja Kazara, Dowari to Ota Mampage, the Kachesa,
And so then also another really important way of understanding Om Mani Padme Hum, we can think of the various bases. So we can think of the basis of purification of Om Mani Padme Hum. These are the 6 types of sentient beings.
Junja, Anyamotu.
The Jangja, that to be purified, are these 6 root afflictions. So we can think that to be purified, the 6 root afflictions, as well as the imprints left behind by those 6 root afflictions.
This one,
Sorry, Tambo Mari.
Tatelam Glastum near Layatel Nietan to do us. De cho, Conto, Naja, Maripa, Tetsom, Tawa.
And we can think of these 6 root afflictions as being attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, and wrong view.
So these are
those things to be purified. So those things to be purified are these 6 root afflictions along with the imprints or the latencies they leave behind. So then what is the purified result of that basis of purification, that to be purified? Once that is purified, what is the purified result? The purified result is the 5 Dhyani Buddhas along with that state of Vajradhara for a total of 6. And also, as one is doing this practice, if one has time to kind of make this really holistic, one can begin by visualizing oneself receiving the light's nectars and so forth, then by visualizing the people close to oneself, then including people who are strangers who one does not know, and people who are enemies or those we find difficult, and in this way including more and more and more beings. So we also, in terms of the purification visualization of how the lights and nectars enter us and push downwards, this is the downward purifying visualization. But the purification can also be visualized as the upward purifying, all things rising to the top and being purified, or the dispelling in the heap purification. So that is the way of practice, and then at the end it is very important to rejoice and really feel happy, dedicating, understood that I have been able to do something beneficial for self and others, for myself and all beings. So thank you very much. Now let us dedicate the merits.
Rambo je ma je ba no je jo je je wa nyam ma me ba kone kondo be wa jo do ne da wa rambo je ma je ba no je jo je je wa nyam ba me ba kone kondo be wa